animal. You're joking. Not at all, said the general. I never joke about hunting. There's a character trait that's going to be important going through. He's always serious about hunting. He says it right there. I needed a new animal. I found one. So I bought this island and built this house, and here I do my hunting. The island is perfect for my purposes. There are jungles with a maze of trails in them, hills, swamps, but the animal, General Zaroff. You can tell from this interruption, which Rainsford is famous for doing, he's been doing it throughout the entire story, that Rainsford wants to know what animal Zaroff is hunting. It's fascinating him. He wants this experience as well. Oh, said the general, it supplies me with the most exciting hunting in the world. No other hunting compares with it for an instant. Every day I hunt, and I never grow bored now. But I have a quarry with which I can match my wits. Rainsford's bewilderment showed on his face. I wanted the ideal animal to hunt, explained the general. So I said, what are the attributes of an ideal quarry? And the answer was, of course, it must have courage, cunning, and above all, it must be able to reason. But no animal can reason, objected Rainsford. This recalls the jaguar conversation as well, and Rainsford's idea that animals don't feel anything because they can't think. My dear fellow, said the general, there is one that can. But you can't mean, gasped Rainsford. And why not? I can't believe you're serious, General Zaroff. This is a grisly joke. Why should I not be serious? I am speaking of hunting. Aha, we knew that line would come back. Hunting? Great guns, General Zaroff. What you speak of is murder. All right, so we're getting thematic here, finally. First off, great guns is an interesting interjection. What does it say about Rainsford and the way that he thinks? That is his exclamation of like, oh my God, is great guns. But then he says, what you speak of is murder. And so Rainsford has a clear distinction between hunting and murder in his head that Zaroff does not. For Rainsford, shooting a jaguar is hunting. Shooting a man is murder. You know, and what's the difference? Maybe Connell's asking us as readers to try and decide what the difference between hunting and murder is. And giving us this as a question. We want to pay attention to that as we continue to read the story and see if that becomes thematic. The general laughed with an entire good nature. He regarded Rainsford quizzically. I refuse to believe that so modern and civilized a young man as you seem to be harbors romantic ideas about the value of human life. Surely your experiences in the war. So, pause again. There's a lot of good characterization of Zaroff here. He thinks that Rainsford is romantic. At the beginning of the story, we found out that Rainsford is not a romantic person. He's not philosophical at all. He's not interested in any of those notions. But compared to Zaroff, he is. So how much farther along the scale of hunter and huntee is Zaroff? You know, it clashes with Rainsford's realist nature to call him a romantic. Also, romantic ideas about the value of human life. This tells us that Zaroff does not value human life at all. Human life has zero value to him. It's just another animal. So I think that's interesting. And it may connect with his Russian roots. You know, the Russian Revolution happened in large part because the aristocracy didn't care anything about the peasants and treated them very, very badly for a long period of time. And so there may be a connection there as well. Let's see. Surely your experiences in the war. This tells you that Rainsford was in World War I at some point, as General Zaroff was. They both said that. Did not make me condone cold-blooded murder, finished Rainsford stiffly. Laughter shook the general. How extraordinarily droll you are, he said. One does not expect nowadays to find a young man of the educated class, even in America, with such naive, and if I may say so, mid-Victorian point of view. It's like finding a snuff box in a limousine. Ah, well. Doubtless you had Puritan ancestors. So many Americans appear to have had. I'll wager you'll forget your notions when you go hunting with me. You've a genuine new thrill in store for you, Mr. Rainsford. All right, so now it comes out that Zaroff wants to take Rainsford hunting. that they're going to go out there and hunt people together. Thank you, I'm a hunter, not a murderer. So there's the distinction again. And there's the author, Connell, trying to get you as a reader to ask yourself, what's the distinction between hunting and murder? Where does the line end? At what point is hunting murder? Anyway, is the line humans? Is that what the line is? Dear me, said the general, quite unruffled. Again that unpleasant word. But I think I can show you that your scruples are quite ill-founded. Yes? Life is for the strong, to be lived by the strong, and if need be, taken by the strong. The weak of the world were put here to give the strong pleasure. I am strong. Why should I not use my gift? If I wish to hunt, why should I not? I hunt the scum of the earth, sailors from tramp ships, lassers, blacks, Chinese, whites, mongrels. A thoroughbred horse or a hound is worth more than a score of them. So a couple of things. General Zaroff is racist. I mean, I think that's pretty clear here. So that's there. But this whole conversation goes back to the beginning, when Rainsford clearly said there are two types of people in the world, the hunters and the huntees. This is the same thing, just taken to a bigger extreme. Not just applied to humans and animals, but applied to humans and humans. We have the humans that are strong and the humans that are weak. And this distinction between them means the strong do what they want to the weak, and the weak can do nothing about it. That is Zaroff's philosophy. Isn't it just an extension of the earlier philosophy of Rainsford in the beginning of the story? Something to think about. But they are men, said Rainsford hotly. Precisely, said the general. That is why I use them. It gives me pleasure. They can reason after a fashion, so they are dangerous. But where do you get them? The general's left eyelid fluttered down in a wink. This island is called Ship Trap, he answered. Sometimes an angry god of the high seas sends them to me. Sometimes, when Providence is not so kind, I help Providence a bit. Come to the window with me. Rainsford went to the window and looked out toward the sea. Watch. Out there, out. There it is, the Scottish accent coming again. I have trouble with O's. Watch out there, exclaimed the general, and pointing into the night. Rainsford's eyes saw only blackness, and then as the general pressed a button, far out at sea, Rainsford saw a flash of lights. The general chuckled. They indicate a channel, he said, where there's none. Giant rocks with razor edges, crouched like a sea monster, simile, with wide open jaws. They can crush a ship as easily as I crushed this nut. He dropped a walnut on the hardwood floor and brought his heel grinding down on it. Oh, yes, he said, casually, as if in answer to a question. I have electricity. We try to be civilized here. That's an ironic statement. Obviously, he's hunting and killing human beings, and he's like, we try to be civilized. You know, like, that's funny and disturbing at the same time. And the irony's not lost on Rainsford. Civilized and you shoot down men? A trace of anger was in the general's black eyes, but it was there for but a second, and he said in his most pleasant manner, Dear me, what a righteous man you are. I assure you I do not do the thing you suggest. That would be barbarous. I treat these visitors with every consideration. They get plenty of good food and exercise. They get into splendid physical condition. You shall see for yourself tomorrow. So we see that he's starting to get angry, but he keeps himself under perfect control. Very much controlling his emotions in the same way Rainsford does in the beginning when he falls in and he doesn't panic. We also find out that he captures these sailors, but then he preps them. He gets them into perfect health. It's like a gladiator, and then he goes out and hunts them. What do you mean? We will visit my training ground, smiled the general. It is in the cellar. I have about a dozen pupils down there now. They're from the Spanish bark San Lucar that had the bad luck to go in the rocks out there. A very inferior lot, I regret to say. Poor specimens and more accustomed to the deck than to the jungle. He raised his hand, and Ivan, who served as a waiter, brought thick Turkish coffee. Rainsford, with an effort, held his tongue in check. "It's a game, you see." "Ah, back to the title again," pursued the general blandly. "I suggest to one of them that we go hunting. I give him a supply of food and an excellent hunting knife. I give him the 3-hour start. I am to follow armed only with a pistol of the smallest caliber and range. If my quarry eludes me for 3 whole days, he wins. If I find him," the general smiled, "he loses." "Suppose he refuses to be hunted?" "Oh," said the general, "I give him his option, of course. He need not play the game if he doesn't wish to. If he does not wish to hunt, I turn him over to Ivan. Ivan once had the honor of serving as an official knauter to the great white Tsar, and he has his own ideas of sport. Invariably, Mr. Rainsford, invariably, they choose the hunt." "And if they win?" The smile on the general's face widened. "To date, I have not lost," he said. Then he added hastily, "I don't wish you to think me a braggart, Mr. Rainsford. Many of them afford only the most elementary sort of problem. Occasionally, I strike a Tartar. One almost did win. I eventually had to use the dogs." "The dogs?" "This way, please. I'll show you." The general steered Rainsford to a window. The lights from the window sent a flickering illumination that made grotesque patterns on the courtyard below. And Rainsford could see moving about there a dozen or so huge black shapes. As they turned toward him, their eyes glittered greenly. This is, of course, foreshadowing, right? If there are dogs that are hunting dogs, they're going to show up later in the story. Now, said the general, I want to show you my new collection of heads. Of course, this is terrifying because you know the new collection of heads is the guys he's killed. These are going to be human heads. Will you come with me to the library? I hope, said Rainsford, that you will excuse me tonight, General Zaroff. I'm really not feeling well. And you can understand why he's not feeling well at this point. That's terrifying stuff. Also, General Zaroff said he hunts here every day. So we're talking like a mass murderer. How many people is he killing over the course of a year? Are we talking 365 hunts? And he's never failed? He's never lost one? Ah, indeed, the general inquired solicitously. Well, I suppose that's only natural. After your long swim, you need a good, restful night's sleep. Tomorrow you'll feel like a new man, I'll wager. Then we'll hunt, eh? I've one rather promising prospect. I think this is fun, because if you're paying attention to the story, who is the rather promising prospect? Rewind. They're sitting at dinner and Rainsford is feeling like Zaroff is appraising him carefully as he eats every time he looks up. If you're paying attention, the promising prospect is Rainsford himself. But Rainsford doesn't hear this. This is dramatic irony. He's hurrying from the room. Sorry you can't go with me tonight, called the general. I expect a rather fair sport. A big, strong black. He looks resourceful. Well, good night, Mr. Rainsford. I hope you have a good night's rest.